Hello, my name is Michael Samara. I'm with VersaSec, and today we are going to have the first video in our series of 3 videos, and we're going to discuss FIDO2 versus PKI. Which should your enterprise really use? Should you use FIDO2 or PKI? I've seen this question delay critical planning and strategy meetings for months. So today I'm going to share a decision framework that can save you months of decision making. If you're an IT security manager or an IAM lead at a company with 1,000 or more employees and you're trying to figure out your credential strategy, this video was made for you. We've seen in the past few years, password attacks have gone from over 500 a second in 2021 to over 7,000 a second in 2024. No surprise with the rise of AI in the last few years. 80% of cyber attacks now also involve identity or credential compromise. So the question isn't whether to upgrade from passwords, it's what to upgrade to. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear framework for deciding where FIDO2 fits, where PKI fits, and why most enterprises end up needing a bit of both. Our team has prepared a downloadable document. You can share it with your colleagues, and during this video, I'll walk you through it. Bear with me and let me pull it up. Again, if you manage credentials at an enterprise and would like frameworks like this that you're about to see, just hit subscribe. This is going to be a series. Okay, this is the FIDO2 versus PKI Enterprise Decision Framework. You can download this, the link's in the description. It's a Google Doc, not a PDF, so you can copy it and customize it for your organization. This is written for IT security managers, IAM leads, PKI admins, anyone at organizations with over 1,000 plus employees evaluating their credential strategy. The contenders for enterprise phishing resistant authentication. So if it's got to be phishing resistant authentication, your options are really FIDO2 and PKI. So we're going to compare the two. And for the majority of cases, it's not FIDO versus PKI, but both. For most enterprises, it makes sense. But knowing where each one fits is the decision that also really matters. So if you can see, this is really who we're gearing this series towards. So let's go into the comparison. We've created a decision matrix. So we've scored FIDO2 and PKI across 8 dimensions. This is not a 1 to 10 score. This is strong, moderate, or limited. And there are notes in there describing what each of those means. So we've compared them in these different ways. So let's look at this. Security level, both are strong. Both provide hardware-backed cryptographic authentication. The difference is PKI also gives you encryption and digital signing. FIDO2 is authentication only. Phishing resistance, they are both strong. FIDO2 is strong, phishing resistant by design. The credential is origin bound, meaning it literally cannot be used on a fake site. PKI is also strong and is also phishing resistant by design. Credentials live on the device. So let's keep moving along and look at deployment complexity. This is where FIDO2 may seem stronger, but read the small print. Yes, FIDO2 has no certificate authority, no templates, no CRL or OCSP infrastructure. There's no middleware, and it does make that part of the deployment easier, but the maintenance of the life cycle is a little different to maintain. So no CA, and it's just a little bit different life cycle management when you're talking about just FIDO, right? Let's look at the user experience. So they're pretty similar, but with FIDO2, you're going to tap or insert, and then you need to touch plus put in a PIN oftentimes. It may be biometric as well. With PKI, you will tap or insert as well, and then do a PIN or biometric. No touch is involved like you would have on FIDO2. So slight difference. If we look at cost of ownership, PKI carries CA licensing, HSMs. FIDO2 involves some different things as an example, IDPs or their configuration, and you must add the cost for account recovery as well. Legacy app support, here's where PKI definitely wins with an LDAP or Kerberos, ADCS. Those all have deep PKI integrations. If you've got legacy ERP or OT systems, mainframe terminals, FIDO2 cannot reach those. It wasn't built for this. Now, if we're looking at management, there are some differences. FIDO2 is built for consumers, personal use out of the gate, and so there's less management control per se without using a management system. PKI has certificate revocation, and that certificate can have different stages or states. So that certificate is also can work for different use cases. But for pin unblock and PKI is the winner there. Compliance readiness, so moderate or strong. PKI has decades of compliance. They are adhering to FIPS or PIV or CAC. These are all built on X509 certificates. FIDO2 is the newer guy. It is growing fast, but it just doesn't have the same regulatory history. And if we get into current state, with offline capability, PKI works offline. It's built to do so if it's an air-gapped environment, especially with FIDO2, the user needs connectivity to the relying party or those web applications. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So our key takeaway is FIDO2 wins on simplicity and cost. PKI wins on breadth, some manageability and use cases, and offline. Neither is necessarily better. They both have their definite uses, and a lot of enterprises could use both, right? So let's keep going though and look at when it's a clear winner one direction or the other. So 6 scenarios where PKI is a non-negotiable. First one is this air-gapped environments where maybe it's classified, air-gapped. It could be for a defense or intelligence agency, critical infrastructure, and PKI again works offline. FIDO2 can if the IDP is on-premise, and that's starting to be something that you see more. Government compliance, again, going back to the PIV, CAC, FIPS, and PIV are both built on X509 certificates. If you're a federal agency or defense contractor and are required to use this, you probably need PKI. Legacy applications, again, legacy applications that only offer certificate-based authentication as the phishing-resistant option. They've been around for decades, and that has been built into them. And then last, for those other use cases necessary to your organization, email, encryption, signing, code signing, they require X509 certificates, and FIDO2 is authentication only, so it can't encrypt or sign. So if any of these describe your environment, PKI is staying. The question becomes, do you also need FIDO2 on top of it? So again, if you'd like this framework for your team, you can download the link in the description. It's a free Google Doc. Grab it and edit it to your needs, and please use it. Feel free to use it. So now let's look and identify when FIDO2 wins. So where is FIDO2 the clear winner? In these cloud-first, SaaS-heavy environments. So if your workforce authenticates through Entra ID or Okta or Ping, maybe Google Workspace, FIDO2 and WebAuthn is native. So there's no CA infrastructure, it's not needed, and there's no middleware. Another win for FIDO is when it's, again, modern web applications, maybe with single sign-on. So W3C is a standard. Every major browser supports it. It's seamless and easy. And then we mentioned the certificate authority earlier for the PKI. If you do not have a CA and you do not need those other use cases that PKI offers, don't set one up. It's an extra piece to manage and unnecessary. So as you probably guessed, now we're going to talk about when you need both. So here's the comparison that articles skip sometimes, and it's the most important part. Most enterprises with over 1,000 employees do need both, and it's not because they plan to, but because their environment really could benefit from utilizing both. So we see a couple of patterns, and the typical pattern is that PKI is there for the legacy apps, the ERP, OT, VPN, maybe physical access. These can use certificates, and they're not going away. This is certificate-based authentication, PKI. Then in addition, to complement, we'll have FIDO2 for those modern web applications, maybe that are registered to Entra or Okta, They are SaaS apps. Maybe your remote workforce users use those types of applications. It's very easy to deploy and set those up. So a big thing is when you are looking at doing both, implement so that you can have it under one management layer. There's operational nightmares when you're running them independently. They do not communicate to each other as they should necessarily, and it can become quite difficult to manage and have them sync up or have a clear picture of what's going on and have it buttoned up tight as it ought to be. So if you can do it under one user interface by using a credential management system, that's really the ideal situation. It makes it traceable, auditable, and seamless. So there's ways to migrate, there's ways to implement that, and we'll talk about that more in a later video, but there is a coexistence architecture. So your identity provider, like your Active Directory or Entra, acts as the policy layer. PKI certificates handle the Kerberos, the SMIME, physical access, stuff like that. FIDO2 credentials handle the web, single sign-on, and things like that for passwordless. And a credential management system handles the lifecycle of both from one console. All right, so if we get down to these last pieces and we look at our decision flowchart, this helps us answer some decisions pretty easily, right? So question 1, do you need email encryption or digital signing? If so, you guessed it, PKI. Question 2, if you're doing air-gapped or offline, again, PKI. Are you subject to adhering to FIPS or PIV or CAC? If yes, you're going to need PKI. It's built on X509 certificates. And you assumed you would hear this one if you have those legacy apps that only speak Kerberos. If yes, you're going to need PKI for those apps, but let's keep going. Because question 5, is your workforce primarily remote? Are they using mostly SaaS, mostly cloud apps? Then FIDO2 is your go-to. That is great opportunity for FIDO to be your option. So 6, are you already running a certificate authority? If yes, keep it. We can probably make it work for your use cases. If no, let's start with FIDO2 if you're just doing authentication. So here, summarizing, yes to questions 1 through 3 means PKI is a necessity. Yes to 4 means hybrid. No to everything means try FIDO first. And most enterprises over 1,000 are probably going to need some hybrid, or it makes sense too. This entire framework is in the Google Doc link below. So please try it out, bring it to your next credential strategy meeting, and make the decision instead of debating over it for another quarter. Make life easier. So some next steps. FIDO2 wins on simplicity and cost. PKI wins on breadth. Encryption, signing, legacy apps, offline, and compliance history. Most enterprises need both, and managing them from one place is the way to make life easier. Use the decision flowchart to map your specific environment. And now that you know which credential type fits where, the next question is, how do you actually roll this out to 1,000 users without your help desk imploding? That's the next video, and we'll see you there.